Games, and I'm here today on, what is it, January 27th, to do as I usually do every Wednesday. I'm here to answer your questions, to discuss some random topics, and to share some Stonemaier Games news. And today, of all days, I do have some fun visuals to show you throughout this video. I'll start out with one of my favorite things to share, which is my chocolate of the day. We got a very, very generous box of chocolate, like a big cardboard box filled with chocolate from one of our longtime partners, Top Shelf Gamer. Top Shelf Gamer makes premium resource tokens and, mostly premium resource tokens and nice things to enhance your games. And we've had just a long-term partnership, and they know I love chocolate, and so among some of the things they said, I can't hold it all because it's so much. Were these lint no, not, yeah, lint truffles. And these are probably my two favorite. I've loved the snickerdoodle and the dark chocolate ones. So really been enjoying them. Thank you, Top Shelf Gamer, for sending them to me. And what's your chocolate of the day? How are you treating or indulging yourself today? A lot of snow happening outside in St. Louis right now. It's snow has been coming down for a couple of hours now and actually starting to accumulate. Um, let's see. I'll jump right into the question. Sure. There's one from Carlos here right from the beginning. He says, "I'm always intrigued if having a new game released creates a spike of sales for some of the older games." He says, "I bought Scythe because of the striking art on the cover, then Wingspan because of the theme. After seeing the care you put into the table presence of your games, I knew I had to buy more Stonemaier games and haven't stopped since then. Am I an outlier?" Thank you, Carlos, for sharing that. And we've seen that to a certain extent. Yeah. If someone tries one of our games and they like it, I think they are more likely to buy another game, whether or not it's at that original point of purchase when they just add more stuff to their cart, or if they come back into the future. I don't know the exact stats offhand of repeat buyers, but it's in the tens of thousands, I think, of people who have ordered multiple times from us. I think the Champion program has been a big part of that too, where if you sign up for the Champion program, you get $10 off every purchase you make from Stonemaier Games. So and it costs $15 a year. So by the time you make the second purchase, you are saving money. And so it kind of encourages you to, if you do like Stonemaier Games stuff, to get it from us and to do so on an ongoing basis. Yeah. Uh, let's see, I have I'll hold off on the visuals for a minute. Let me mention a few other fun little things. One was, I mentioned recently that I've been looking to get a copy of Everdell, and I haven't been able to easily find one. It seems like it's maybe out of stock everywhere right now. But a fan of some of our games, Chrissy, helped hunt one down and is arranging for it to be sent to me. And I just wanted to mention that because it meant a lot to me for someone to listen to something that I was looking to play and having a hard time getting and actually acting on it. So thank you so much, Chrissy, if you're watching this. I really do appreciate that. I haven't gotten it yet, but I think it's coming soon, and I look forward to playing that. A few other little things. So over the past weekend, my girlfriend Megan, her brother and sister-in-law visited us, and they are very, very good about self-isolating and quarantining, as are we. And so we were able to have a fairly normal weekend together with a few other people here in our condo. And that was really nice. So we got to play a lot of games. We played the new game that I will be announcing next Wednesday. So I can't talk about that yet, but we are announcing a new game next Wednesday in our e-newsletter and on this live cast. We also played Project L. Project L is a fairly simple polyomino game, very easy to teach and learn and play. I've been enjoying that a lot lately. And we also played Evolution Climate for the first time. I played the original Evolution, but I hadn't played the Climate version, and we had fun with that as well this weekend. We also played 2 rounds of disc golf here in St. Louis, and we watched a fair bit of the recent sumo tournament in Japan that ended up with, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it was a great tournament, fun to watch. If you are curious about sumo, I would recommend Googling Grand Sumo Awesome, and you'll see a number of 30-minute highlight clips from the most recent tournament there. I'll jump over to questions real quick and then jump back to some other discussion topics and those fun visuals that I promised to share. Alex says, "Great topic about be a part of the story of a game." Thanks, Alex. Yeah, that was a topic brought up by someone named Larry, I believe, in a previous blog post. And so my blog post this past Monday was about um, how to Well, it was listing some ways that people could feel involved in the story of our games, even though we don't use Kickstarter, but also explored some other ways that maybe we could help to make people feel more involved in the story of a specific game or Stonemaier games in general. And so I explored that in detail in both the blog and in the comments on Monday's blog. So feel free to check that out. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Alex. Tim says, is today the start of the reveal? No, Tim, I'll be revealing our new game next Wednesday, but if you go to Instagram at Jamie Stegmaier, you can see a teaser image that I teased this morning. Nishant says, did I see the wholesome post on Reddit about someone who proposed to their boyfriend using a Scythe custom-made encounter card? I did see that, yeah. Yeah, I love these proposal stories when people use the card templates that we provide. They're on our website for various cards from our games. When people have used it, I've seen quite a few for Scythe and Wingspan when people have created a custom card to either propose to someone. Those are my favorite. Also, some baby announcements have emerged from those cards. If you search Stonemaier Games for 3 weddings, I think it's 3 weddings and a baby is the title of the blog post. You can see a consolidated list of a bunch of different proposal cards on there. And I think I'll grab the image from Reddit and put it on that blog post as well so they can continue to be all consolidated there. Tim is joining us from Scotland. He's working on the Tapestry digital version. Ishant also says, do you have some other such wholesome moments? Yeah. I missed that question, but yeah, we do have a number of proposals that have happened using the card templates that we provide. Chris says, what have been some of your favorite snacks from the subscription service you're doing? Yeah, we subscribe to a service called Universal Yums, where every month you get a box of goodies from somewhere in the world. And they're the types of, like I say, goodies, the types of goodies that you would get at a convenience store in that country. So they're not like delicacies, but they do taste good. And over the years, when you get the box, you get to try different things. And if you want, you can go to Universal Yum's website afterwards and buy more of some of your favorite treats. And let's see, some of my favorites, there were these, I'm trying to see what they were. I have a box of treats over here. There were a few, like the Russian treat box was really good. We had some favorites from that. So there was I believe a pistachio chocolate covered flaky thing, kind of like a Kit Kat in the US, but a little bigger and had pistachio in it. And there was also from Russia, kind of like a waffle cone like thing with a white chocolate in the middle. That was really good. There's also been some good salty treats from Brazil. There was a particularly good salty treat that we haven't been able to find, but we really enjoyed that one. Yeah, those are some of my favorites. If any of you subscribe to Universal Yums, do you have a favorite treat that you've discovered by doing that? Krista also asked, how are the cats? And you can see Biddy in the background there, taking a little nap on his chair. Okay, let me show some of the visuals before I go on to questions here. So the first thing I have to show, I have 2 shirts to show. So one, my friend Ed at Pencil First Games sent me a hoodie. And I actually don't own any hoodies. I'm not really into a hoodie guy, but this is a great hoodie. I play red when I play games, has Pencil First logo on there. And so I love the idea of wearing a red hoodie when I play red in tabletop games. So this was really nice of Ed. I actually meant to wear this during the podcast, but and I wore it yesterday, nice and warm, nice and fuzzy. I don't know if Pencil First sells these, but if they do, and you're looking for a hoodie and you like Pencil First games, yeah, definitely recommend it. Also, as part of our relationship building and efforts and declaration of action for Black, Indigenous, and people of color over the last 9 months, I've formed a great relationship with Dwayne and Alicia at Black Board Gaming. We helped them out with some equipment. We talk about advice from time to time. Dan, the Board Game Geek, has also been instrumental in chatting with them. And they were so nice to send me a shirt. So I now have a Black Board Gaming shirt from the Black Board Gaming channel. I highly recommend this channel. I love the way they think about games and talk about games. This is a YouTube channel, Dwayne and Alicia. It's just a couple that talks about their love of games and specific games. Obviously on their channel they do reviews. So feel free to Google or go to YouTube and look out for Black Board Gaming. Let me answer questions, then I'll come back to the 3 other visuals I have today. Lots of fun stuff to show you today. Let's see. John says, I'm just wondering if you could quickly go over your opinion on the difference between going to Kickstarter versus Stonemaier games, for example. Um, yeah, I mean, that's a big topic, John, but I'll try to cover it real quickly. So, the biggest difference, I'll just cover the biggest difference, which is if you back up, oh, if a creator, I'll do it from the creator perspective. If a creator goes to Kickstarter, um, and puts their product on Kickstarter. They are creating something new. Usually, backers are involved, at least in a small way, in the creation process, whether it's through stretch goals, um, feedback about the game itself, things like that. And then production hopefully starts soon after the campaign ends. And then hopefully that game is delivered to backers around 6 to 8 to maybe 12 months later. So essentially, one way to think about it is that backers are giving or are loaning money to the creator to make something, and then the creator will make that and give that thing to the backers around 6 to 12 months later. The Stonemaier method is that we make a product that we really believe in. We make it as good as we possibly can using feedback from a lot of different people on our team, proofreaders, copy editors, other partners, Panda, our manufacturing partners, playtesters, things like that. We make it as good as we possibly can, and we just make it. And then when it has almost arrived at the different fulfillment centers that we use around the world, that's when we announce it to the world. And then we share what is in it over the course of usually 10 to 14 days. I'm revealing the details of it. And then a few weeks later, we open a pre-order. And then a few weeks later, we actually ship the product. So between the time of when you learn about the product and when you actually can receive it from the pre-order is usually less than 2 months at the very most. Yeah, less than 2 months compared to a Kickstarter where the varies like the minimum amount of time that it would take for you to get the game is almost always 6 months, and that's often stretching it. Usually it's around 8 to 12 months. So really, the biggest difference between the methods is the gap in time between announcement, the reveal of what it is, and when you actually get it. That's the biggest part of it. There's a lot more there to unpack. You can check out my blog for a lot more details about that. If you have any other specific questions, I can try to answer them. But yeah, it's a big topic. Simon says, if you were going to run a crowdfunding campaign in 2021, would you use Kickstarter or GameFound? That's a good question, Simon. GameFound is certainly intriguing to me. GameFound, if you don't know about it, is a platform created by Awaken Realms. They have been using GameFound as a pledge manager, a third-party pledge manager for a long time, but they have now created a fully fledged crowdfunding platform on on their platform on GameFound. So you can essentially you can run a crowdfunding campaign on GameFound if they accept your project, because they're currently kind of in beta mode. They're only accepting a few projects. And Simon, I love to experiment. I love to try new things. And so if I were to run a crowdfunding campaign, which I'm not, but if I were, I would probably experiment and give GameFound a try. Yeah. But I'm answering specifically for Stonemaier Games. I'm not answering that as a recommendation to anybody else at this point, because it's still a very new platform. I think we need to see some projects from other creators on there to test it out to see how it goes. Because so far we've only seen Awakened Realms use it for ISS Vanguard and their upcoming project Kingdom Rush. I'll answer a few more questions, then jump back over to my fun visuals here. Tony says he recently watched the Game Master documentary on Amazon Prime. I thought it was a great peek into the growth of a game designer. Do you have any other movies or documentaries you'd recommend for a board game fan? I have watched Game Master too, and I enjoyed it. There is another one that was filmed years ago. I make like a very brief appearance in it, but I can't remember the name of it at this point, unfortunately. For a board game fan, I mean, The Queen's Gambit was a fun series. It wasn't a documentary, but it was a movie. I really, well, kind of it was a mini series, The Queen's Gambit. I really enjoyed watching that on Netflix. And there was a Go documentary called, I think, Alpha Go, that was really interesting to watch. And somewhat tangentially, I very recently watched a movie about rock climbing called The Dawn Wall. It's on Netflix, I believe, either Netflix or Amazon Prime, and it was awesome. It was really, really fascinating to watch. And I think there are probably, if you look for them, some parallels between game design and rock climbing. I've done a blog post about that. But it was just a really solid documentary. Also, other things, just while I'm on this topic, other things that we randomly have watched recently. We watched Lupin on Netflix. It's a 5-episode series that I hope will be continued. I think it will be continued. It's a French series, and it's essentially it's a heist. It's a heist series, and every episode feels like a little bit of a heist. Uh, I heard about it because someone pitched it as like Ocean's 11, where every episode feels like Ocean's 11, and it kind of does, but with maybe one lead character instead of 11. And we're also, for fun, watching a comedy in the U.S. here called Superstore, which I'm enjoying way more than I thought I would. I am really enjoying that. Okay, let me take a break to show you the other visuals that I have today. Two of them are still my related, one is not. One is that I got my advanced review copy or advanced copy of Celebrating Birds. This is not at all actually related to Stonemaier Games. This is a book of art and bird facts that's mainly led by Natalia and Anna, the two artists of Wingspan, of all these beautiful birds in Wingspan. They partnered with HarperCollins to bring this book to life. And it is really, I'll flip through it real quick if I can on screen. It is just, it's a beautiful book where you get to see all the artwork in Wingspan kind of in full color and close to the real size that the artist actually made it. On the bird cards in Wingspan, they're kind of small, but they made the original art is much bigger. And it's a big chunky book of stories about birds and fun facts, and yeah, I love books like this that kind of go into detail about a variety of different animals or creatures or countries, or yeah, I love stuff like this as a kid, and it's a beautiful production here. So I'm excited and happy to have this, and so excited for Natalia and Anna, and Elizabeth too. Elizabeth has a small part to play in this book as well. Well, a very large part as the Wingspan designer. She has a little foreword at the beginning of the book, and I think she contributed to a few of the bird facts. But yeah, really, really cool book there. I think it will be releasing in a few months now, but you can pre-order it from HarperCollins. The second thing was, I've been talking about how we're working on a big box plus organizer for Wingspan. No gameplay content, just a big box and organizer, like an organizer tray and maybe a few other fun components in there, but nothing related to gameplay. And one of the things I wanted to put in this box, since I don't want to sell you a big empty box, is some custom bird nests. And so we've been exploring some different ways that we can offer bird nests. And I have two things I'm going to show you here. I don't think either of these things will work out. I think we might have to go with a kind of a molded plastic bird nest, but I'll show them to you. The first is we requested knitted nests to see if that would work. So this is the sample of the knitted nest that we received. And it is nice. It's surprisingly nice for something that can be mass produced. The only problem with it is like the lip, I think, it looks more like a hat than a nest. Because it is knitted and the way it kind of lays flat on the table, it doesn't really all that much end up looking like a nest. I'm open to your feedback here, but it just doesn't remind me all that much of a nest when it's on the table. Now the other option, or the second option, this again isn't the one that I'm recommending. Definitely looks like a nest. I'm hesitant to pull it out for a reason that I'll mention in a second, but this is an actual like wooden bird's nest. It's not a nest that an actual bird used, but I'm just kind of bewildered that this can be mass produced. But this is an option for a nest that we could put in the Wingspan Big Box. The problem though, as we discovered, I don't know if you can see it on camera here, but the little pieces from this nest go everywhere. So it would be really messy basically. And I don't know if gamers are really going to embrace a true, like, even as I put it back in the bag here, pieces are falling off of it. It's an incredible thing that they can make this at scale, but I just don't know if it's going to work for the mess factor. And so that's why I'm leaning towards a plastic molded nest. But I'm open to your feedback here, of course. Oh, looks like the scroll is... I need to answer questions because Facebook is scrolling past questions. I'm sorry if I missed your questions here. I'm going to scroll and catch up a little bit before I show you the last thing. Those are the two Stonemaier kind of related things. Tim says, what does the advanced side of the pendulum boards change for the player? It seems my wife and I are getting too good at finishing all the tracks and end up fighting for the most votes in the final round to break the tie. Well, a couple different things. On the backside of the pendulum player mats are the advanced characters basically offer more advanced abilities. So they have cards that are a little more varied than the stratagem cards that come with the other characters or the basic characters. The starting resources are different, the tracks are different, and then the starting province benefits at the base of the player mats are different on the advanced side as well. So they just add a little bit more thought process. Oh man, Facebook is scrolling past a ton of questions here. So I will try to catch up. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, so I'm definitely going to miss some questions here, so I don't totally miss them. But if I miss your question, please repeat it in the comments. I'm not ignoring anything unless you're asking for a spoiler. Okay. I'm just looking for questions here. Jock says, any plans in making a compact travel version of any of your games, of any of your existing games? We don't currently have plans to do that. No, no. JJ says, would I recommend Scythe for mainly 2 players? If so, would you recommend Rise of Fenders for the same player count? I designed Scythe to work from 2 to 5 players, 6 to 7 with the expansion, and it plays fully solo as well. So I designed it to work well at all of those player counts. For Rise of Fenris, it's a campaign game, so my recommended player count is the number of people who are committed to actually getting together with you and playing that campaign over the next month or so. Oh, Tim mentioned a new documentary from Ryan Lockett, which does look really, really interesting. I'm a big supporter of Ryan and his work. I can't wait to get Sleeping Gods, and I'm very curious about Now or Never. So I think the documentary might be a little bit about Now or Never. Now or Never. Stefan says, when you think of cool expansion ideas for Tapestry, Euphoria, etc., you can explore that. But have you ever had an idea for Charterstone and wished you had thought of it earlier? I don't think I have. I mean, when I played through The Rise of Queensdale, which is a game from Inca and Marcus Brand, completely different game, but also a village building legacy game. As I played it, I was like, oh, some of these ideas are really, really cool. They would have been cool in Charterstone too. But I didn't feel like any of those ideas needed to be in Charterstone. They needed to be in Rise of Queensdale. So I don't really think. I mean, there may be a few little things that I'd adjust or change, but I'm pretty happy with how Charterstone turned out. Yeah. Okay, Chad says, oh, what is that book's wingspan? How big is it? Um, it's, I don't know, about 12 inches, 12 or 13 inches, I think. Okay, I'm scrolling through looking for a few other questions. Daniel says, did you factor in delays in freight and shipping when deciding the release date for Codename Gold? Um, Kind of, yeah. I mean, we're always looking at freight shipping delays. Uh, I am almost definitely, unless something big changes, I'm almost definitely planning to announce it next Wednesday. And typically the pre-order follows about a month later, and with shipping happening a few weeks after that. It is possible due to the freight delays that fulfillment will take a little bit longer, but currently we are still planning on doing the pre-order in early March. And so it is possible, it's possible that your copy will be delivered in March. But it does depend heavily on how freight goes. Oh, did I not say what the nests are for? Yeah, so the nest that I was talking about for the Wingspan Big Box is to hold the eggs in Wingspan. So instead of putting them in the little plastic containers, you could actually pull eggs out of a little nest. But again, I'm leaning towards a molded plastic version because I think as beautiful as the real looking nest is, it is just so messy. Joey says, is it possible to share any of your design processes, initial notes, early prototypes, and steps to the finished product? Absolutely, Joey. Yeah, if you go to the Stonemaier Games website and you look under, it's not all of our games, but I have design diaries for many of our games up there. Like go to Tapestry and look for the design diaries. We have it there. We have it on. We have one for Pendulum. I'm thinking of new games that we have. What came in between that? Tapestry, Pendulum. What am I forgetting? I guess we have some expansions between then and now. Yeah, so if you look under Tapestry and Pendulum, definitely have design diaries. Pendulum wasn't my design, but I still posted the design diaries. Then if you go to Wingspan European and Oceania, there are design diaries. You have to click through and you'll get the design diaries for them. And Charterstone has a long design diary as well. I think if any other games do. Between Two Castles might. But yeah, you can definitely learn a ton about our processes in detail through reading those posts. And also on my YouTube channel, I talk about the game design process as well. Let's see. JJ says letter games usually uses the Scythe big box as an example for why not to do a big box for Root. They say as an actual business venture, it's not that profitable. If so, what made you try for a second big box this time for Wingspan? Um, that's interesting. I didn't know they were using the big box as an example for that because it actually like if you sell it directly, it can actually be fully profitable. I think they're maybe thinking of it as a product for distribution, and in those terms, they're absolutely right. It is not profitable if you sell it to distributors unless you really hike up the price, which I don't like to do. For Wingspan, I kind of have acknowledged that we don't plan on it being a product for distribution, and so we can put a lot of cool stuff and effort and time and money into the box and know that it will be profitable because we'll only be selling it directly instead of at a 60% discount to distributors. The main thing for Wingspan is that all the content for Wingspan at this point doesn't fit well, not only into the original box, but even into some of the expansion boxes. They fit, but you have to keep all the boxes. You have to keep all the stuff. And I don't want to ask people to do that. I think it's better if we can find a nice way to consolidate it all into one box, both for content that's already been created and for content that's going to come in the future. Corlin says, have I considered making pint glasses for your games? Would love some Stonemaier Games glasses. We do make viticulture wine glasses. They're on our web store. But it's probably the only glass thing that we'll ever make because they're incredibly breakable. I mean, we successfully ship them most of the time, but every once in a while they'll be thrown on someone's front porch and they'll break. And so glass is something that we generally stay away from. But I am open to other companies making glass versions, kind of not necessarily not with our logos or trademark stuff on it, but glass versions of things that are inspired by Stonemaier Games if they want to. Mark says, "What's my current favorite game on Board Game Arena?" I really there's a lot on there. I have a video about my favorite games on Board Game Arena if you check out my YouTube channel. One that I've really enjoyed over the last year is Seven Wonders. It's kind of a filler on Board Game Arena. It only plays in like 10 or 15 minutes, and for the ramp up and the satisfaction I get from playing Seven Wonders, getting all that in 10, 15 minutes is awesome. There are a lot more longer, deeper games that I also really enjoy on there. You can check out the video for that. But Seven Wonders comes to mind first. What about you? Do you have a favorite on Board Game Arena? Max says, do I have a specific graphic designer that works for Stonemaier Games? Yeah, we work with someone named Christine Santana, and she does all of the graphic design for our games and for our various products. Yeah. Let me mention the one other visual I wanted to show. This isn't a Stonemaier game, but I'm really excited about it. I've really been looking to getting Canvas. Canvas is a game that uses plastic cards. You can see them right here. Plastic cards and sleeves to create beautiful pieces of art. And I think it kind of has a set collection aspect to it. But I was really curious because I've heard that you can actually hang this box on the wall, and I was so curious how they would do it. And I can see how they did it now. They basically left a hole here in the back of the box and there's like sturdy cardboard right above it. I don't know if you can see that. And so you can actually just hang this entire game on your wall, which is just incredible. And also cleverly, they didn't put the name of the game on the top or sides of the box. So someone looking at your wall will just think that this is just a nice small canvas piece of art. The name of the game is right on the top where someone probably wouldn't see it on the wall. I just think this is a brilliant idea, especially for a game that's a little thinner and could hang on the wall without risk of falling off. Just a really, really clever idea, and I can't wait to play this. That's Canvas here. This is my Kickstarter copy that just arrived. I have a few other random topics to share today, but I'll jump over to questions real quick so I don't miss any questions again. Sorry about that. Again, repeat your question if I missed it, unless you're asking for a spoiler, which I won't give. Tim says, we played Tapestry Plans and Ploys the past couple of nights. Have you noticed that the shades of purple are a bit off from the original civilizations? Yeah, I mean, that happens often when you're printing something new, even if you use the exact same art. Based on the printing conditions or the exact mixes of the ink, it can end up being slightly different. We do strive to use different methods to prevent that from happening, but fortunately it doesn't really impact any of our games because you're always drawing from the top of the pile, and so you have nothing to compare that to unless you're really trying to compare the different shades of purple. But we do try really hard to prevent that from happening, but it inevitably happens. Just if we print Tapestry in 2019 and Plans and Ploys in 2020, the ink is just inherently going to be a slightly different based on when you print it. Sean says, could I 3D print the realistic nest that's made of wood? That way it wouldn't shed but still look awesome. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know much about 3D printing, but I guess it is possible you could try to 3D print something like that. It would ultimately be in plastic, which is what we're probably going to do for the nest that you'll put eggs in. Joseph says, what's my favorite vegetable? What's my go-to vegetable? I eat baby spinach pretty much every day. So I'll say baby spinach. I have a baby spinach salad at dinner. I would say every day, like literally every day. Yeah, that's a big part of my dinner. Tim says he's been itching to play Charterstone. It's the only game of mine that he hasn't played yet. Is it better to wait for the group, or is it two-player? Is it good at two players as well? Yeah, similar to my answer about Scythe, I designed Charterstone, playtested it a ton at two players, and so I am really happy with how it works out at two players. You are offered the option in the campaign to have automated players that you can kind of run. It's not complicated, but it does require a little bit of that if you want to do it. That isn't something I designed, though. I designed it fully to be played at just two players, and there are elements that scale up automatically for the charters, the parts of the village that you aren't actually building or running as a result. But it doesn't require any ongoing effort. So I would recommend playing at two players without the bot for at least like the first four games. And if you feel like you're missing something, you can always add in the bot, the simple bot, to have other players kind of occupying action spaces. But it isn't necessary. Carrie says, what continent for Wingspan is next? Is that anticipated to be this year or next year? So part of that would be a spoiler, so I'm not going to answer that. But in terms of the timing, I think we're currently looking at a 2022 release for the next Wingspan expansion. Yeah. Chad says he just got a nearly perfect score in Pendulum with the advanced side and the advanced nobles. This kind of ties back to, I think, Tim's question earlier. He was wondering if there was a plan for increasing the scoring opportunity or options in an expansion, if this is not an isolated event. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you played a really good game of Pendulum. I would say it is somewhat isolated that you truly max out all of those score tracks. So we don't currently have any plans to make them any longer. Maybe we need to make the game a little bit harder in an expansion if we do that, so that doesn't happen quite as often. But we do, I mean, it's a tough balance because we want players to be able to advance all their tokens, or at least we want at least one player to be able to advance all their tokens into that parchment area, that victory point area of the track to be eligible for the victory every game. Jazz is here. Awesome. Jazz is from the Lobby of Hobbies, or the Hobby of Lobbies. Sorry. He says, I know here your favorite games and mechanisms you enjoy, but what about Megan? What are one or two of her favorite games to play? Yeah, I have talked to Megan about maybe letting her put together a top 10 list for me to do on my channel, but Megan's top 10 really varies quite a bit, or her favorite games vary all the time based on what she really enjoys at any given time. I know she loves Isle of Cats. That's definitely one that's on the list. She loves Wingspan. What did we play this past weekend? She enjoys Project L, one of the games that we played this past weekend. What else does she really enjoy? I think she had fun with the Pandemic Legacy Season 0 campaign. I think it just depends. One thing I know that Megan doesn't enjoy that much are push your luck games, although she enjoys Quacks, which might be the exception to that. But she has a pretty broad range of games she enjoys, depending on like the player count or who she's playing with. And she's very good at games. She beats me on a regular basis at games. Especially the higher the agency is in the game, the more she's likely to beat me. If there's a little bit of luck involved, I might have a slightly better chance. But someday maybe I'll figure out a way to cater some sort of top 10 list that we can put together for Megan so you can hear what games she loves. Mike has another Charterstone question. He says, it looks like it can play up to 6 players. That's right. Do you think a group of 3 could play the campaign twice without a reset kit? No. I mean, what you're doing in Charterstone is building a shared village. And the buildings you're placing in your part of the village become action spaces for you and any other player to use with their workers. And so you build this village over time. So each of you has a charter where you're placing buildings in that charter and building it up, creating these new action spaces. And for any player that's not active in the campaign, or any charter that's not active, so there are 6 charters for 6 players. If you have play with 3 players, for those other 3 charters, there's an automated element to it where over time you'll be building stuff, not you, but the game will instruct you to build something in those charters so that they grow as well. Um, and even if you decided to ignore that and not do it, if you started a new game of Charterstone, a new campaign of Charterstone with 3 players, you would already have these 3 charters that are completely built out. It just doesn't work. But the one piece of good news is we designed the game of Charterstone to have a double-sided board. And so all you need to do is add the update pack. There's an update pack that you can buy on our website. You can add that update pack and use the contents in that to play a whole other campaign of Charterstone without having to rebuy the game itself. The update pack is much cheaper than the game. And so you just flip the board over and play a new campaign with those same 3 players if you want to. Chad says, in disc golf, do you play that each hole is a par 3? No, it depends on the course. There are some courses where everything is par 3, but the courses that I played this past weekend varied quite a bit. Some were par 3, some were 4, some were 5s. I think those were the 3 main ones that we played with. Yeah. John says, do you have to worry about child safety for your game? Like pieces not small enough to be swallowed? It's something I worry about, yeah, but we basically put a warning label on our box. Our games aren't meant to be played by toddlers because there are a lot of little bits and pieces in our games, and we don't want anyone choking on them. Daniel says, what's my favorite aftermarket accessory for one of my games? Like tokens, coins, organizers, stuff like that. Both, I mean, MeepleSource and Top Shelf Gamer, I think, do a fantastic job. So Top Shelf Gamer creates like these realistic resource tokens that we originally made, and then they bought that part of our brand. I love those realistic resource tokens. And MeepleSource makes really nice wooden tokens for games like Wingspan. So I really like those tokens as well. I'd say those are up there among my favorites. I like MeepleSource's meeples as well. I did videos. Okay, so my video this past weekend was about remakes or new editions of games. And there are a lot of games that fall into that category. And it feels like almost more than ever, there are more like remakes or new versions of games, new editions coming out. A lot of remakes in particular, or sequels, than completely new games. So much so that in 2020, I did 2 separate top 10 lists for my favorite games of that year. One which were remakes and new editions, and one which was comprised of new games. So I did a video about this topic last weekend on Sunday. I also did videos recently about Kingdom Builder, Luxor, and Reload. Reload is on Kickstarter right now, but I had the chance to play the game on Tabletop Simulator. What else? I think I've covered all the topics. Yeah, I've covered all my topics. I'll just focus on questions for the rest of our chat today. Let's see, a couple other people saying that they got Canvas, this game that I held up a few minutes ago. Here we go. Max says he's a graphic design senior graduating soon, excited to start doing work. Any tips or thoughts on how to get into board game art and board game graphic design? Yeah, search on StonemeyerGames.com, Max, for what is the blog post? I believe it's like volunteer your way into a new industry. And so the heart of this piece isn't that you should give your work away for free. Your work is valuable, especially if you're a great graphic designer. You deserve to be paid for that. However, one of the ways to get attention in a new industry is to simply show up and make cool stuff. For example, a few weeks ago on Board Game Geek, a graphic designer made a post expressing how he loves Pendulum, but he wishes the player mats were designed a little differently. And he went ahead and redesigned one of the player mats in Pendulum, and he shared it there, and he shared the design process and why he did certain things. And I saw it, and I was like, wow, you actually did a really great job with this. And I have since paid this person as a consultant for a completely different game, to give us some advice on what he thinks we could change about a very specific graphic design element of that game. So basically, by volunteering and just putting his stuff out there to the world based on a game that he enjoys, it wasn't him like hating on Pendulum. It was him saying, I like this game, and here's this one thing that I would do a little bit differently. He got the attention of the creator, the publisher of the game, and we've already paid him for some work. So that is, I would say, the number one way to get the attention of a publisher right now. Take a game you love, but maybe has something that you would tweak or do differently, and do it and redesign that element of it and share it in the spirit of love, in the spirit of loving the game and loving it so much that you spent the time as a graphic designer to change that one element. and share it on Board Game Geek, share it on some of the Facebook groups for the board game industry. I would offer the same advice for artists. You can do the same thing. Take a game box that you love, and even if you don't think it needs to be changed, take the game box that you love and do your own version of it, and show people what you've got. I think that can really go a long way. Let's see. Michael says something that isn't quite correct here. He says, you'll notice in card games, because they use different printers, that the same card will be in different shades. That happens very rarely, Michael, that a publisher would use completely different printers for the same game. Um, yeah, we almost. I mean, I think most publishers find a manufacturer that they're really happy with, and they stick with that manufacturer, especially for a specific game. They don't switch printers for that. At times, if you're talking about the actual printing machine, at times, yes, the manufacturers do upgrade their printing machines. In fact, we had this happen without us knowing on Tapestry. So Panda had a machine that cut. It was a cutting machine that cut player mats, and they upgraded their machine. They got a more precise machine, a better machine. But when they cut the player mats for the Tapestry expansion, um, the machine changed the size of it just a little bit. It's like 1 millimeter difference. And so in the Tapestry expansion, the mats are very, very slightly um, off size compared to the original mats. But I can see annoying a lot of people. It doesn't matter for the gameplay at all, but I can see that being a little annoying. So Panda is going to make sure that doesn't happen again. But you're right. When a company upgrades their machines, certain things can change in terms of cutting, sizing, color, things like that. Neeks says, do you think, oh, yeah, okay. Neek says, do I think that Somar Games might publish a cooperative game at some point? Yes, I do think we will. I know that I am working on one right now, and so that one will eventually be a cooperative game. I don't know if it'll be our first cooperative game, but it is definitely in the works. Yeah, absolutely. And I just actually filmed a video, coincidentally, somewhat off topic, but I filmed a video about my favorite cooperative games to play specifically at two players. I filmed that yesterday, should go live in a few weeks. Allison says, we just got Pendulum this past weekend, and Jared has been studying the solo variant the past 38 hours and is so excited to try it. He loves playing Scythe Automa, and he's just as much of a fan of Wingspan Automa. He's wondering if Pendulum Automa plays similar to either. They're certainly all designed by the same people, by the same group, but every Automa is catered to that specific game. So the Automa system, well, the system is similar, but the way it plays is a little different. Yeah. Tim says, getting to space and Tapestry is so satisfying. That actually emerged while I was designing Tapestry. I saw someone comment on a different Civ game where I think they said that they wish they could go to space in a Civ game. And so I added that during the Tapestry design. Tim says, I've been wanting to play more space and 4X games. I recently started watching Lost in Space on Netflix. Would you be interested in making a space game in the future? Maybe. It would have to be the right mechanisms, the right approach to space, because in general, space as a theme doesn't appeal to me as much as, I don't know, solid ground games. I don't know why. It's just personal preference there, but I think it is possible. It is not something that I'm currently working on, but I think it is feasible. Michael says he got his first two Stomaro games, Between Two Cities and My Little Scythe. Great quality mechanisms and fun. Thank you, Michael. He says, My Little Scythe is my kid's new favorite game. I have a lot of questions on rules that aren't clear in My Little Scythe. What's the best way of getting them answered? The best way is definitely to go to the My Little Scythe Facebook group and post the questions there, and we are happy to help in that Facebook group. Allie says, do you think playing the Charterstone app would ruin or spoil the physical game later? Spoil, yes. Ruin, no. I think the Charterstone app is a beautiful implementation of the tabletop game, but in digital format. And if you're excited to play Charterstone but can't play the tabletop version right now, I highly recommend it. However, I mean, one of the real pleasures of playing a legacy game is the act of creation. You're creating this village by putting stickers on the board, by naming certain characters and other things, by going through the story path. And there are different story paths. So even if you go through the path one way on the digital version, you might go through it in a very different way in the tabletop version. But the act of like actually creating this village together in a permanent sense, It's something that I don't think can ever truly be replicated in a video game, because in a video game you just hit the undo button or you start over. You can't do that in a legacy game. I think that's the fun feature of a legacy game. Those permanent changes that can't be undone, especially in an act of creation instead of an act of destruction. Sean says, does gold have anything to do with Red Rising? I appreciate your curiosity about Codename Gold, but obviously I'm not going to spoil what the game is until next week when I tell you a lot about what the actual Codename Gold is all about. Yeah. So again, appreciate curiosity. I'm not going to spoil something though until I'm ready to share it. Alex says, will there be a Wingspan big box storage solution this year? Yeah, I talked about that a little bit earlier in the live cast. We are actively working on the big box organizer for Wingspan. I don't know when it will be available, but we are currently working on it. James says, have Stonemaier Games ever thought about doing a trilogy of games like Raiders of the North Sea or Architects of the West Kingdom? If you have, what theme would you like to do? I love what Shem has done in creating these trilogies of games. I think that's really, really clever. It currently is not something that we have done. The closest I've done is a trilogy of expansions for Scythe, where I did Invaders from Afar, The Wind Gambit, and The Rise of Fenris. But I kind of like to keep our worlds self-contained in a specific game, like design the best game for that world in a single game and then move on. There is one project that I'm partnering with someone that we're starting to work on that might end up being something like that. Three completely different games, or a few, maybe two. I don't know. Maybe not a trilogy, but more than one completely different game set in the same world. So it might happen in the future, but it isn't something that we're currently really planning around in any of our existing IPs. Tyler says, have I seen the new card material being used by Roxley in Radlands called Synth? I did see that. Yeah, I was scrolling down the project page for Radlands the other day and saw that. They created a new PVC, kind of a plastic card material that doesn't require sleeves because it's plastic, and it's fully bendable where you can't ruin the card. I think it's pretty cool. I have yet to feel it. I'm very curious to feel it and see how it is. What has been the reception to it? The people excited about it? Do they prefer the card stock? I don't know. Knowing Roxley, I'm sure they did a fantastic job with it, and I'm curious if they will let any other companies use it if it becomes a big hit. Mark says, I'm sure this isn't a spoiler comment about Charterstone. Okay, I think he's good. Mark says, I played a few Charterstone campaigns and have one blank board still. Is there a recommended building distribution to put out for the best version for ongoing non-campaign games? Not an official version from Stonemaier Games. But I think Tom Vassell a few years ago put out a video about what he thought a final version of the Charterstone village should look like. So if you look for on the Dice Tower on YouTube for Charterstone, you might see a video about that. Nick says, are you all working on a rewarding game? Yeah, actually, I'm actually working on a top 10 video about rewarding games, because all of Stonemaier Games, that is like our style of game that we make. We make games where you are constantly rewarded with more and better stuff. Instead of making games that are punishing. We don't really make punishing games. So yeah, all of the games that we have and all the games that we're working on are rewarding games. Chad says, have I read any good books lately? He finished Dark Matter and it was amazing. I do have Dark Matter on my list, but I haven't read it yet. I finished Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War maybe a week or so ago. Finished that. Very, very good. And now I'm reading the second book in the Fury of Dragons series. I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's really, really good. It's by Evan Winters. A really, really good fantasy book there, set in kind of a non-medieval fantasy culture, which is it's refreshing to read that. Let's see. Patrick says, have I ever gone to thrift stores to search for hidden gem games? He says, we just found an unpunched first edition of Escape the Curse of the Temple for $4. I haven't done that, but it's always fun to see people post about what they find in thrift stores. I always wonder how the games got there. Carol is just joining us here. I am having a good Wednesday so far, Carol. Yeah, thank you. Let's see. I've covered all my topics for today. I know if you're just joining us live, you might have to go back and see what I talked about today. But I showed some things, quite a few visuals today. But but I'm just scrolling through looking for a few questions while we wrap up today. Corlin says, when will the Scythe card game be announced? Correlate, yeah, that's kind of a loaded question there. You're assuming that there is a Scythe card game, which I have not announced anything like that, and I can almost say definitely that there is not a Scythe card game. And when will it be announced? That is something that I'll reveal at this point. Yeah, be careful about loaded questions like that because someone might read that question and think, oh, there's a Scythe card game. But there isn't a Scythe card game. I did a couple years ago, I think it was around this time last year, I asked people if they would be interested in a Scythe deck builder or living card game, just to get input on that, to see if there could be ideas about a completely different game in the Scythe world. But I hope no one interpreted that as meaning that I am definitely doing that or definitely working on it. So, yeah, please phrase the questions a little differently so people know that there is not such a thing. I think that's a little misleading. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that question because that's going to confuse people. Let's see. Fires of Vengeance. Thank you, Sarah. Fires of Vengeance. Yes, awesome. Thank you for thinking of that right off the top of your head. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying that book. Did you like it? Have you read Fires of Vengeance? The trilogy is not finished. I think in fact, I don't even know if it is a trilogy. I'm assuming it is. It's a book trilogy. But so far, it's been a really, really great book series, in my opinion. David says, any update on the Tapestry implementation on Board Game Arena? Are you planning on putting any other Stonemaier games on the platform? Yeah, so this is something we have announced that there will be Tapestry on Board Game Arena when it's ready. And I don't really know that. That's totally up to Board Game Arena. I thought by now it might have been on there because they've been working on it for quite some time. But I think they ran into some issues with the Capital City mats. Yeah, they hopefully are still working. I'll check in with them today to see how that's going. Any other games? I would love to put all of our games on the platform, but it really comes down to if the digital rights holders for the games allow us to do that. And I'm talking about that with a few of our other digital partners. Yeah. Derek says he just finished Rage of Dragons based on my recommendation. Yeah, that's the series of books I'm talking about. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Derek. And you can now check out Fires of Vengeance as well, because that's available. Michael says, how many games on average are you generally working on? And of those ideas, how many would you say you scrap until something really gives you that aha moment? I scrap most of them. Most of them just end up being little ideas, maybe a quick brainstorm that I have fun with. On my desk right now, I have 5 folders of games or products that I am in various stages of just having fun brainstorming and working on. I'm actively working on 2 games and many more expansions. There are a lot more expansions in the works, whether or not I'm the designer or just the developer on them. Let's see. Steven says, what's my favorite faction in Scythe? It really depends. I mean, my general answer for that is I like to play the factions that are seen as more difficult. That's the case for whenever I play any game that has asymmetry, asymmetrical factions, or civilizations, or whatever it may be. If some are perceived as more difficult, I like to play them and try to win with them because that to me is more satisfying than playing a faction that is deemed as a little easier or more likely to win. So in Scythe, I have yet to win in the published version of the game with Saxony and I believe Togawa. I think those are the 2. So I would say those 2 are kind of my favorite challenges to play when I play Scythe. Sean mentioned a book called Mythra Mages that he'd recommend. And Michael says his favorite faction in Scythe is also Togawa. Tony says that he played Shards of Infinity for the first time and really enjoyed it. Have you played the Shadow of Salvation expansion and do you prefer the game as co-op or in its original versus mode? Yeah, Tony, that's been a game that I discovered around this time last year and I've mentioned it in a lot of my top 10 videos over the last year. I love Shards of Infinity. Especially I started out with a digital version. It's a great digital version if you want to play in versus mode, dueling mode. But Megan and I have had a ton of fun with the cooperative version, Shadow of Salvation. We played through the campaign twice because there are 2 paths you can take through the campaign, and so we fought completely different bad guys, villains, the second time we played than the first time, and we had a lot of fun with it. And it's the type of game that I think we'll honestly return to every now and then. Even though we played through the cooperative campaign twice, we might return to it and just play it for fun again. Just play again, pick up a bad guy and play against that bad guy because we really, really enjoy that cooperative mode. Yeah, but sometimes if I just feel like playing a game really casually, almost mindlessly for like 10 minutes, I'll pop on Steam and play a quick digital game of in the versus mode of Shards of Infinity. Abigail says, "Do you have any games that you leave permanently set up? In our house, our dining room table is half occupied by Wingspan 24/7." That's awesome to hear, Abigail. We have, for the last year, we've had Charterstone actually set up inside my gaming table. So we have one of those gaming tables with the top layer. It's from boardgametables.com. So there are insets over the top, and the Charterstone is in the inset portion. And it's set up not completely out of choice, but because we can't get together with the three people that we started the Charterstone campaign with. So hopefully someday in the future we'll get together and finish the second half of that campaign. Until then, we have not opened up our table in like a year now. Max says, "How much history did you research or get into when designing Scythe?" That was actually more Jakob. Yeah, a lot more Jakob. Jakob is grew up in Poland. He is Polish, so he used a lot of his knowledge about history, particularly a war that happened between Russia and Poland, to influence the design of Scythe. But that was totally him. Jakob is the artist and the world builder. He is the creator of the Scythe story. I'm just the guy who came in and designed the game itself. Matt says, "When you're developing a game like Scythe and you're trying to figure out a mechanism, do you play games with mechanisms that you're trying to resolve for that inspiration, like Combat in Scythe and Combat in Rex and Dune?" Yes, I'd say a big yes to that. Yeah, I definitely think about and play and research. Sometimes I just go back and watch videos about combat mechanisms, or that's where I actually learned about Rex. I didn't play Rex when I was designing Scythe, but I was struggling with a combat mechanism, and I happened to watch a video about Rex, and I was like, oh, that combat dial mechanism, something like that could really work. So it's kind of the combat inside is a combination of Rex and Kemet. And so, yeah, definitely, I think about and play and watch a lot of other games while I'm designing something, especially if I'm struggling with a mechanism like the combat inside. That took a long time to figure out. Yeah, that's a great question. Let's see. Tim says there's a new Shards of Infinity expansion coming out this year. There is. Unfortunately, it's not cooperative. I wish it were. Um, yeah. Janine says, "Any tips for solo gamers with no gaming background when starting a new game online? I play Wingspan and Viticulture, so thought I would try Charterstone online. I have no idea what I'm going for." For solo, so I don't play games solo on the tabletop. But if you are playing the digital versions of our games, I don't know, just try things and see how they work out. I think that's usually how I play. Like when I first played Shards of Infinity, the digital version of that, I was like, I don't know what I'm getting into. So I just played a game and experimented with it and saw what worked and didn't work. And then the lovely thing about a digital game is you can stop it at any time. You can start a new game at any time or a new campaign. So yeah, I would just poke around and experiment with different things, see what works, what feels good. And then if you feel, especially with Charterstone, if you feel like you need to reset, you can do so. Sean says, "Did I miss chocolate of the day?" You did. It was given to me by Top Shelf Gamer. These are Lindt truffles. Yeah, really, really delicious. Tim says, "Did I see the new Dune board game spin-off?" I did not see that. I've been loving Dune Imperium. Is that related to Dune Imperium or the original Dune game? I may have seen something like that. But yeah, I'm loving Dune Imperium so much that's like the Dune game for me. I'm happy with that one. Well, it looks like with perfect timing, we reached the end of the comments and questions here. Thank you so much for joining me for the chat today. I will put this video up on YouTube, and so if you have any follow-up questions or comments, feel free to post them in the comments on the YouTube version. That's where I'll see them. And next week, I am so excited to share this game with you. I can't wait. Next week will be the announcement of a game that I'm so excited about. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to stop here, but I'm so excited to share with you next Wednesday. I'll see you then. Take care.